Ind SpaceX, Ind SpaceX, SPACEX, Ind SpaceX, right? So this is important, guys, because this is the country's first ever simulated space warfare exercise, right? I'll repeat it again. This Ind SpaceX is the country's first ever simulated space warfare exercise. Simulated means it's not real, right? It's just simulated. Means it's created artificially. So it is country's first ever simulated space warfare exercise. It has studied about army exercises or naval exercises or air force exercises, but this is space warfare exercise, space exercise, simulated space exercise, right? First, country's first simulated space exercise. Now, which is conducting this? Defense Ministry is conducting this. Defense Ministry is conducting this Ind SpaceX. This is a 2 days space warfare exercise, right? 2 days space warfare exercise, and this is being done for better preparedness in the space sector, right? To protect our space equipments. We have a lot of communication satellites there. We have a lot of navigational satellites there, right? So to protect the entire space infrastructure of India, this exercise is being done to see up to what extent we are ready in protecting our space equipment. That is the objective, to protect our space infrastructure, and also in the backdrop of increasing China's space capabilities. That is also important. If our neighboring countries' space capabilities are increasing, we should also improve our space capabilities, right? So for that, this Ind SpaceX was conducted, right? So this is country's first ever simulated space warfare exercise. Defense Ministry is conducting it to protect our space infrastructure and improve our space preparedness, right? So for this exercise is conducted. In this context, we also have to know about Mission Shakti, right? Mission Shakti, which happened in 2019. This is related to ASAT. Test called Mission Shakti took place, right? This is related to ASAT. Just find out what this Mission Shakti is and what is this ASAT, right? For the first time, India has developed its capability to destroy a satellite in the space. So this ASAT or Mission Shakti is related to that. Just find out what is it about, and also study about Outer Space Treaty. Outer Space Treaty, that is also related to space. Outer Space Treaty is related to peaceful use of outer space, right? Peaceful use of outer space. It puts some conditions and responsibilities on the countries which are using the space, right? So that's why just get into the details of Outer Space Treaty and also study about what is Mission Shakti and ASAT, right? So this Ind SpaceX is also important for us, right? Country's first ever space warfare exercise. So the second topic we are going to take up is Global Innovation Index. Global Innovation Index, right? India's rank was consistently improving in this Global Innovation Index. Compared to 2018, India's rank improved to 52 in 2019, right? In 2018, it was 57. In 2019, it became 52nd, 52, right? So this is the rank of India. So the rank of India has improved consistently. So this Global Innovation Index, which organization publishes it? That we have to know. It is WIPO, W-I-P-O, WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, and INSEAD, I-N-S-E-A-D. This is also an organization, right? So two organizations, WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, and INSEAD, I-N-S-E-A-D, right? So these two bodies together published this Global Innovation Index. Now, this is important for us because throughout the last year, whenever any statements were given by ministers about $5 trillion economy, this innovation index was cited, right? In a number of situations, this innovation index was cited. So that's why it's important for us. And also India's rank has improved. This index is important. So in this context, not only the index, India's ranking, not only these, but we also have to know what are some initiatives taken by the government to improve the innovation in India. So what did the government do to improve the innovative ecosystem in India? Right? Some schemes are Atal Innovation Mission, which is being implemented by Niti Aayog. This was asked in prelims 2019 paper, guys, right? So this Atal Innovation Mission is being implemented by, and 4 options were given in 2019 prelims paper. So this is one scheme that is implemented by Niti Aayog, Atal Innovation Mission. Similarly, we have a number of schemes. Try to find out schemes. I'll tell you the names. Inspire is one scheme. Inspire, INSPIRE. Aspire is one scheme. Aspire. Vajra is one scheme. Vajra, VAJRA. Vajra. And also Kiran is one scheme. Kiran, related to encouraging women in innovation. Kiran is one scheme. And Setu, SETU, Setu is also a scheme related to innovation. So just find out what all these are. What is Inspire? Which ministry is implementing it? Is it related to innovation or entrepreneurship? Just find out. Similarly, Aspire, Vajra, Kiran, Setu. Find about all these things, guys. And also, Atal Incubation Centers are there. Atal Tinkering Labs are also there. You might have heard about these names, right? What is the difference between Atal Tinkering Lab and Atal Incubation Center? Both are for encouraging innovation only. But Atal Tinkering Labs is at the school level. Atal Incubation Centers is at the university level. Right? This is one difference for Atal Incubation Center and Atal Tinkering Labs. Atal Tinkering Labs means at the school level. Atal Incubation Centers means at the university or the college level. Right? These are some minor differences which we have to be careful for prelims. Right? So this is about Global Innovation Index. India's rank improved to 52 and it's published by WIPO and INSEAD. So this is about Global Innovation Index. An important topic, it's DNA Regulation Bill 2019. DNA Regulation Bill 2019. So this is important because this was in news for various reasons, and it's also related to science and technology, right? So this topic can also be seen as an S&T topic. So first of all, DNA means deoxyribonucleic acid, right? This is the full form of DNA, and try to get some interesting details about DNA also. You can get them in net. Some things are DNA is made up of chromosomes, 23 pairs of chromosomes, right? Some base pairs will be there in DNA, A, G, C, T, 4 things will be there, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, some base pairs will be there. Just find out what are these base pairs, right? Genes are also there in DNA, right? If not about DNA regulation bill, they can ask about DNA directly, right? So that's why try to get some important points about DNA. Some points I have told, some points you work out. So basically, what is this DNA regulation bill? Through this bill, the government is trying to use DNA technology to identify criminals, right? To identify criminals, to solve the crime cases, government is trying to use DNA technology. For that purpose, this DNA regulation bill 2019 was brought, right? So this is called DNA profiling. DNA profiling means using the DNA and trying to match it with some DNA which we get in the crime scene, right? This is called DNA profiling. Comparing and seeing if the DNA matches or not. This is called DNA profiling, right? So this bill tries to use DNA profiling to establish identity of individuals. Just assume a blood sample found out in a crime scene, right? That the DNA in that particular blood sample will be tried to match with those who are accused. If it matches, then that particular person is the criminal. So it solves the cases very easily compared to previously. Investigation, prosecution, and criminal justice system will be made more easy. It will be more easy and speedy justice is possible, right? One of the major flaw in our criminal justice system is improper investigation and prosecution. Now that problem can be solved by this DNA profiling, right? So that's why this bill is very important. However, this was in controversy because of privacy issues also, right? The DNA of the individuals collected, it can be manipulated. So for some reasons, this bill was in the news. So some of the provisions of the bill are, some of the important provisions which we have to know with respect to bill are, first one, DNA usage. So the first provision is about DNA usage. Whose DNA we can collect? We can only collect those people's DNA who have committed any offense under IPC. This is first criterion. If anyone committed offenses under IPC, then his DNA can be collected, right? And also related to some civil cases like paternity suits. What is this paternity suits? We have some cases where it's a case related to proving whether one is a father or not for a son or a daughter, right? These cases we might have seen. So in such cases where paternity or maternity is involved, definitely this DNA can be used, right? That is the second criterion. And third criterion is for establishing identity. We see some missing persons, right? To help these missing persons, and also for identifying unidentified dead bodies, right? For identifying the unidentified dead bodies. So for this identity establishment also you can use DNA, right? So DNA collection can be used for three criteria. First is offenses under IPC. Second is paternity and maternity suits, right? In any cases, if it is required to prove whether there is a father-son relation or a father-daughter relation or not, there also this DNA can be used. And also for establishing identity, right? For identifying missing persons, and also for unidentified dead bodies which we find, right? For these also we can use. This is the first provision. Second provision is consent of the person, right? Whether consent of the person is required or not to collect this DNA. That is the second provision, right? Because DNA consists sensitive information also about an individual, right? The DNA has all the genes. Through these genes, we can get to know the vulnerabilities of an individual, right? What is he allergic to? What are his medical vulnerabilities? Is he suffering from any diseases? All these can be identified through DNA profiling. But that's not the purpose for us, right? This is for criminal justice system. So that's why consent of individual is required while we are collecting the DNA, right? This is the second provision. From any individual who is accused, if we are trying to collect the DNA, his consent is required. However, there is a small catch here. In all cases, consent is not required. Just imagine some serious cases, right? Like a murder case or a rape case or a case on a small child who is under 14 years. Such kind of cases where the punishment is for more than 7 years, right? Such cases where if proved guilty, punishment is for more than 7 years. In such cases, consent is not required. For serious offenses, consent is not required. This point we have to know, because if there is any question about DNA regulation bill, one of the option can be like consent of the individual is required for all the cases. That's not the case, right? For those cases which involve punishment more than 7 years, for such serious cases, consent is not required. This is the second provision. Third provision is about DNA data banks. DNA data banks also will be set up, right? we have to secure these collected DNA samples very carefully. For that purpose, national level and regional level data banks are set up to store these DNA profiles. This is the third provision. And fourth provision is removal of DNA profiles. Just imagine a case is solved and someone is not guilty, right? He is innocent. Now, storing his DNA sample is not correct. He is not guilty. He is not convicted. The case is solved. So in such scenario, that person on a written request can ask his DNA data to be destroyed, right? He can ask his DNA data to be destroyed, right? All those who are proven innocent or not convicted, not guilty, they can by a written consent ask for destroying the DNA evidence, right? That is the first thing. Second thing is under trials. Who are under trials? Under trials means, as name itself suggests, they are still under trial. That means their case is not yet taken up by the court because of some issues, or because investigation or prosecution is still going on. The case is not yet solved in the court. That's why these people are kept in the jails, right? These are called under trials. So in the case of under trials, they have to request the court, and if the court gives an order to destroy the DNA data, it has to be destroyed, right? So in the case of under trials, a court order is required to destroy the DNA data, right? Whereas someone who is innocent, he can directly give his written consent or written approval for destroying his DNA data. Third thing is suspect. Who is a suspect? Suspect means someone whom we are doubting in a particular crime investigation. He is not yet proven guilty. He is also not yet proven innocent. He is a suspect. So suspects also, if they want their DNA data to be removed from the government records, then they have to go to court, and court has to give an order. So this is about removal of DNA profiles. The next provision is DNA Regulatory Board, right? We also have a DNA Regulatory Board also. So this DNA Regulatory Board is about regulating this DNA collection, DNA storing, right? DNA profiling, all these activities will be regulated by this board. Now, who is the chairperson for this board? Secretary of the Department of Biotechnology. Secretary of the Department of Biotechnology is the ex officio chairperson for this DNA Regulatory Board. Is the ex officio chairperson. And also Directorate General of National Investigative Agency and CBI. These are also there. Just remember that not only one person, but some 2 to 3 people are there. Remembering that is enough, guys. And this is related to, this body is related to protection of DNA data, right? So this is about DNA Regulatory Board. This is also a provision under DNA Regulation Bill. And also it consists of penalties for various offenses. Penalties for various offenses, right? Penalties for various offenses are also there. For example, if any of the authority is misusing the DNA data, or any individual has hacked the government database and is misusing this DNA data, then penalty for such offenses is also there, right? So these are some provisions about DNA Regulation Bill. So DNA Regulation Bill is a landmark reform in criminal justice system. Especially it makes easy the investigation and prosecution. Pendency of the cases can be reduced, right? These are all the benefits of DNA Regulation Bill. Some provisions are DNA usage, right? For all the offenses under IPC, for paternity and maternity suits, and for establishing identity, we can collect the DNA. For collecting the DNA, consent is required. However, not for all cases consent is required. For serious offenses where punishment is more than 7 years, consent is not required. DNA data banks are also set up at national and regional level for storing the DNA data, right? And removal of DNA profiles. If he is an under trial, then court order is required. If he is a suspect, then court order is required. If he is innocent, then his written approval is enough. to ask the government to remove the data. And DNA regulatory board is there for protecting the DNA data, for monitoring the DNA profiling. Ex officio chairperson, Department of Biotechnology secretary, this we have to know. And there are some penalties for offenses also, right? So this is everything about DNA regulation bill. This is not yet passed in the parliament, right? It is still in the hands of the select committee. That is one point. And also in the context of DNA, just find out whether the novel coronavirus, which is in the news and which is because of which pandemic happened, whether it is a DNA virus or an RNA virus, right? Just find out if it is a DNA virus or an RNA virus. There are two types of virus, DNA virus and RNA virus. Now, which is more dangerous, DNA virus or an RNA virus? Just find out this also. Yeah, this is about DNA. The next topic we are taking up is Chandrayaan-2 mission, right? So everyone knows this mission is to explore the lunar southern region of the moon, right? So this was launched by ISRO, guys. That is the first point where we have to have clarity. And this is a completely indigenous mission. Completely indigenous mission. That means indigenous means everything from nuts and bolts to the entire mission. It is India which developed on its own the complete mission, guys, right? So it is a completely indigenous mission, right? Everything we manufactured on our own. That is the second thing. So that's why this is important, because we made it indigenously without taking other countries' help. This mission is important for us with respect to prelims. And the third thing is, this is India's second lunar exploration mission, right? This is India's second lunar exploration mission, not the first. We already sent Chandrayaan-1, right? This is Chandrayaan-2. So second lunar exploration mission. And this Chandrayaan has three components. This Chandrayaan-2 has three components. First is orbiter. This orbiter basically revolves or rotates around this moon surface, right? It rotates in the moon's atmosphere region to study the atmosphere. To study the atmosphere of the moon, this orbiter is there. Next component is lander. Lander basically lands on the surface of the moon, right? Lander basically lands on the surface of the moon. The name of this lander is Vikram, right? The name of this lander is Vikram. This is important because unfortunately we could not land this Vikram properly on the surface of the moon. So the name of the lander is Vikram. This was designed for soft landing. This was designed for soft landing, which we could not achieve completely. So this Vikram lander was designed for soft landing. And a rover is also there. What is this rover? After landing on the surface of moon, this rover is like a six-wheeled vehicle which moves on the surface of the moon, right? Rover, it roves or it moves on the surface of the moon. So this name of this rover is Pragyan. Pragyan, right? They can confuse us here. They can tell lander name is Pragyan and rover name is Vikram. That's not the case. Lander name is Vikram. Rover name is Pragyan, right? So these are small things where we have to be careful. So three components: orbiter, lander, Vikram, rover, Pragyan, right? And this was launched by GSLV Mk3 vehicle, right? So this Chandrayaan-2 was launched by GSLV Mk3, right? This is the launch vehicle. This is the launch vehicle, something which is used to launch this, right? That is GSLV Mk3, right? And this is the first space mission of India for soft landing. That means this is the first time India tried for soft landing under this Chandrayaan-2 mission, right? So that point is important for us. And if it would have been successful, then India will be fourth country after US, Russia and China to do soft landing, right? So India would have been fourth after US, China and Russia if it did this soft landing, right? So this point is important for us. And now what is the objective of this Chandrayaan-2? Why was it sent? It was not sent simply to observe the moon. It was sent to explore the unexplored southern pole region of the moon, right? To observe the unexplored lunar south pole region, right? Just like how our earth has north pole and south pole, even the moon also has north pole and south pole. So the south pole region of the moon is not explored yet, right? It's called unexplored lunar south pole region. So this unexplored region, to explore that region, we have sent this Chandrayaan-2, right? So this is important. And now, why is it called unexplored? It's called unexplored because our earth can only see one side of the moon, right? The other side of the moon is not visible to the earth at any time. Why? Because the time which the moon takes to rotate around the earth is also around 24 hours. So that's why the other side of the moon is not visible from the earth, right? So we don't know yet what's happening on the other side of the moon. That's why it is called unexplored lunar south pole region, right? It is still not yet explored. So this is important, guys. So the other side of the moon is completely dark. Now, why is that so important for us? It is important for us because as it is not exposed to any light, it has some elements related to origin of solar system, right? When the solar system origined or started, some elements will be there which are present on the other side of the moon even now, right? It is not exposed to anything yet. So we can get a good picture of how our solar system originated if we go to the unexplored surface, right? That is the first benefit. And the second thing is for mineral mapping. For mapping the minerals, we have discussed there was a rover called Pragyan, which will be moving on the surface of the moon. That is basically for mineral mapping, to find out any important minerals are there on the moon. And also for estimating the water distribution on the moon. That is the third objective, right? Not for water identification. We have already discovered water on the moon in Chandrayaan-1 mission itself, right? So this point we have to be careful. Chandrayaan-2 did not discover water on the moon. Chandrayaan-1 discovered water on the moon with the help of NASA. Chandrayaan-2 is for getting the water distribution on the moon, right? Getting the complete picture. Where is water stored in the moon, right? What are the different sources of water on the moon? So to find out the water distribution on the moon, Chandrayaan-2 was sent. This is also one of the objective. And the other objective is to study the atmosphere of the moon. The orbiter which we have discussed, orbiter, the one which rotates around the moon in the moon's atmosphere, that is basically to study the atmosphere of the moon, right? So that is also an objective. And also topography studies. Topography means the relief features on the moon, the ups and downs in the surface of the moon. Are there any craters on the moon? Are there any hilly regions on the moon, right? So to find out all the topography information is also an objective of this Chandrayaan mission, Chandrayaan-2 mission. So these are some objectives. And also on the moon, there are untapped resources, guys. Untapped resources like silver, sodium, mercury, methane, hydrogen, ammonia, right? In this way, many untapped resources which are important for us, right? Because our fossil fuels are getting extinguished or depleted day by day as they are non-renewable resources. So such kind of new resources are very important for us, right? So on the moon also we have some resources, untapped resources. So to identify those resources and estimate how much resource is there, for that also this Chandrayaan-2 mission was sent. Right? These are all the objectives of Chandrayaan-2. Also again saying water is not detected by Chandrayaan-2, it was detected by Chandrayaan-1. Right? So water distribution is the objective of Chandrayaan-2. So this is about Chandrayaan-2 mission, guys. And there is also another mission called Gaganyaan mission. Just find out what that Gaganyaan mission is. And also related to Gaganyaan mission, a technology demonstration was done by ISRO. Vyoma Mitra, right? A bot, an artificial intelligence bot called Vyoma Mitra was designed by ISRO. Just find out who is this Vyoma Mitra, right? This is called the first woman robot to be sent to the space. So just find out who is this Vyoma Mitra, how is it related to ISRO, and what is this Gaganyaan mission. Try to get all the details. And also if any recent lunar missions done by any countries like China, right? China also has a lunar probe called Change, CHANG, Change 4 probe, right? Find out what is this Change. What are China's lunar missions, right? What are US lunar, NASA's lunar missions? Just find out about these also. So this is about Chandrayaan-2. It is launched by ISRO, completely indigenous, India's second lunar exploration mission. It consists of an orbiter which rotates and tries to study moon's atmosphere. Lander will be there, which will do soft landing on the surface of the moon. The name of the lander is Vikram, and there is a rover called Pragyan. And this Chandrayaan-2 was launched by GSLV Mk3. Which launched Chandrayaan-1? It was PSLV, right? Chandrayaan-1 was launched by PSLV. Chandrayaan-2 was launched by GSLV Mk3. This is the first mission of India in trying the soft landing. If it was successful, then India would have become fourth country after US, China and Russia to explore the unexplored lunar South Pole region. This is important. This is the important objective of Chandrayaan-2, right? Other side of the moon is completely dark, so we can get the traces of origin of solar system, mineral mapping, water distribution, atmosphere studies, topography studies, tapping the untapped resources like hydrogen, ammonia, and etc. All these are objectives. So this is about Chandrayaan-2 mission. Now we'll go to environment topics. So today's environment topics will be a bit different. So the first topic is red mud utilization. Red mud utilization, right? We have already discussed as a part of our crash course about how to use plastics in various ways, in various productive ways, right? How to use fly ash also we have discussed, right? How to use fly ash waste productively in different areas, in soil, in cement making, in bricks manufacturing, right? Similarly, we have discussed about plastics also, how to use plastics in road construction, right? So similarly, this red mud is also a waste that is generated in aluminium manufacturing, right? This red mud is basically solid waste generated during aluminium production, aluminium, right? So when aluminium is basically produced by recovering aluminium from minerals, right? So mineral exploration is done and aluminium is extracted. So in the process of extraction of aluminium, solid waste is generated. That solid waste is red mud. This is the first point where we have to have clarity. And what is the process that is used to manufacture aluminium or produce aluminium? It is Bayer's process. B-A-Y-E-R-S, Bayer's process. So aluminium doesn't exist as aluminium in the earth. It exists as ores, O-R-E-S, ores, right? Bauxite is one ore in which aluminium exists. So our target is to extract this aluminium from the bauxite ore. Bauxite mines, everyone have listened, right? So bauxite mines, from that bauxite ore, we have to extract aluminium. That is done by Bayer's process. In this Bayer's process, this red mud is also generated, right? Now this red mud is a big headache for us because there are some environmental damages because of this red mud. What are they? It is extremely corrosive. Extremely corrosive. C-O-R-R-O-S-I-V. It is extremely corrosive. It damages the soil, right? It damages the soil. It contaminates the groundwater. And also there are some dust emissions because of this red mud. and also area for disposal is also an issue, right? So all these are environmental issues. It's extremely corrosive, it damages the soil, it contaminates the groundwater, dust emissions, and area for disposal. All these are environmental impacts, right? India on an average produces 9 million tons of red mud waste every year, right? 9 million tons of red mud waste every year. So Ministry of Mines has suggested to use this red mud in various ways, in various productive ways, rather than simply dumping it, right? Because if you are dumping it, soil and groundwater are getting contaminated. That's why Ministry of Mines has suggested to use this red mud in productive ways. How is it? Firstly, in brick making, right? In brick making, this red mud can be used. In paints manufacturing also, this red mud can be used. In ceramic manufacturing also, this red mud can be used. In rubber and plastic industry also, this red mud can be used. And also for treating the acidic soils. The soil has to have a neutral pH, guys. Soil's pH should be always neutral. Soil should not be acidic or basic, right? If it's acidic or basic, then the soil fertility will get affected. So always neutrality should be maintained, right? So red mud can be used to treat acidic soils. If any soil is acidic, then we can add this red mud to make it neutral, right? However, if we use so much red mud, then it becomes basic and it affects the soil, right? That's why it damages the soil basically. But if we use them in correct proportions, then this can be used for maintaining soil neutrality in pH, right? So these are some areas of use. So red mud, it's a solid waste that is generated during bauxite mining to extract aluminium. Bayer's process related to extracting aluminium from bauxite ore. Ministry of Mines suggested some waste: brick making, ceramic manufacturing, paints manufacturing, treating acidic soils, rubber and plastic industries. These are some ways. Environmental impacts we have discussed. It damages the soil, it damages the groundwater, dust emissions are there, right? It's extremely corrosive. India produces around 9 million tons of this red mud, right? So this is important for us because circular economy is very much focused in our country right now. Government of India is so much focusing and giving importance to circular economy. In that context, we have to know these things. Circular economy we have already discussed, right? Waste from the wealth. Sorry, wealth from the waste, right? So to extract wealth from the waste and use it as a raw material in the industries again. This is called circular economy. We have already discussed as a part of crash course difference between circular economy and linear economy, right? If anyone has forgot, just go through the notes. So circular economy is important. That's why all these are important. Fly ash, red mud, plastic waste, right? So this is about red mud. And the second topic is Special Rhino Protection Force. Special Rhino Protection Force. Now this is important because a Special Rhino Protection Force was set up in Kaziranga National Park. In Kaziranga National Park. This is there in Assam, right? So Kaziranga National Park is in Assam. Now Special Rhino Protection Force is set up in this to control rhino poaching. Poaching means killing the rhino for its horn, right? India is famous for one-horned rhinoceros. So 90% of Indian one-horned rhinoceros are located in Kaziranga National Park. And one of the main challenges is poaching of one-horned rhinoceros for its horn. So that's why this protection force was set up. Now, which has set up this? An initiative of central and state government together, right? Central and state government together have set up this Special Rhino Protection Force. And NTCA, National Tiger Conservation Authority, we have already discussed about this. So this NTCA body has recommended for this Special Rhino Protection Force in Kaziranga National Park, right? So this point also we have to know. And are one-horned rhinoceros found only in India? No. That's not the case. They are also found in Nepal, Bhutan and Pakistan as well, right? Because any animal is in news, if any question is there on any animal, one of the common statement which UPSC tries to give is rhinos are only found in India. They are endemic to India. So that's not the case. One-horned rhinoceros are also found in Nepal, Bhutan and Pakistan. This we have to know. And in India, mostly they are in Kaziranga National Park only. And other wildlife sanctuary where these one-horned rhinos are located are Pobi Tora Wildlife Sanctuary. This is also there in Assam, right? Pobi Tora, P-O-B-I-T-U-R-A, Pobi Tora Wildlife Sanctuary. This is also there in Assam. These are the two places where we can find one-horned rhinoceros more. And what is the IUCN status? This we should not forget, right? Any animal we see in newspaper or in current affairs magazine, right? First thing we have to do is, what is the IUCN status of this? So the IUCN status of one-horned rhinoceros is vulnerable. Vulnerable. It is not endangered. It is not critically endangered. It is vulnerable, right? This we have to know. What is the IUCN status of Bengal tiger? It is endangered. Bengal tiger's IUCN status is endangered, whereas rhinos is vulnerable, right? It is basically poached for its horn. So in this context, there are two recent things that are being done by government. The government is trying to transit or shift these rhinos from Kaziranga National Park to other national parks, because the Kaziranga National Park's capacity is reached now. Now more rhinos it cannot accommodate. For that reason, some rhinos are being shifted from Kaziranga to other sanctuaries. Just find out what the other sanctuaries are and where are they located, so that it would be useful for you. And also India Rhino Vision 2020. This was also a vision given by the government last year. So find out about this also. India Rhino Vision 2020. So this is about Special Rhino Protection Force. It's being set up in Kaziranga National Park by center and state both initiative. NTCA recommended this. This is to control rhino poaching, right? It's being poached for its horn. It's also found in Nepal, Bhutan and Pakistan also. Most of the rhinos in India are found in Kaziranga and Pobi Tora Wildlife Sanctuary. IUCN status is vulnerable, and India Rhino Vision 2020, and also they are being shifted to other things. Just find about that, right? And the next topic is Earth Overshoot Day. Earth Overshoot Day. EARTH, Earth Overshoot Day. What is this day? This day is calculated every year, right? So basically the significance of this day is, take 1 year. In 1 year, we know that nature will try to replenish the water, right? All the natural resources, the nature tries to replenish them. That means again regenerate them, right? So that will be done in some rate, right? At some speed, at a particular speed, the nature will be trying to recover the water, air, soil, etc., everything. On the other side, the rate at which humans are consuming, the rate at which humans are using the soil, the rate at which humans are using the water, the rate at which humans are exploiting the air, right? These two rates are not the same, right? That's why we are studying about sustainable development, because the rate at which humans are consuming and the rate at which the nature is trying to replenish are not matching, right? So every year, what this Earth Overshoot Day is, every year they'll find one particular day on which in that year what all resources the nature has replenished are consumed, right? So every year assume some 100 kg of air is being replenished by the earth. So what is the day on which that 100 kg of air is consumed completely by humans? So this measure is Earth Overshoot Day. If anyone didn't understand, just go to Google and search it. So for examination purpose, what we have to know is who publishes this Earth Overshoot Day. Every year it is World Wildlife Fund, WWF, World Wildlife Fund, and Global Footprint Network. Global Footprint Network. So this World Wildlife Fund and Global Footprint Network, these two organizations together publish this Earth Overshoot Day, right? As the name itself suggests, this is the date to find when the nature's rate at which it makes resources in one particular year are completely used up by the humans in that particular year, right? So this year it gave July 29th. July 29th as the Earth Overshoot Day. That means in the last 1 year, what all new resources that the Earth has generated in the last 1 year, we have completely used them by July 29th. So what all we are using after July 29th are the resources which nature has prepared long back, right? So this is the philosophy behind Earth Overshoot Day. This is an interesting topic. A question can come from this. So just go through this, guys. Earth Overshoot Day. And it says the rate at which we are consuming is 1.75 times faster than how the nature is trying to replenish. So the rate at which we are consuming is 1.75 times faster than the nature's regeneration, right? So these are some topics for today, guys. And if we see today's newspaper, Citizenship Amendment Act was in the news, right? So there was an article telling about Citizenship Amendment Act and Ministry of Home Affairs. So find out what are the provisions in the Constitution related to citizenship, right? And what is that act about? What are the communities that are covered in that act? What are the communities that are excluded in that act? What is the cutoff date that is mentioned in that act, right? Is the word persecuted minorities used in that act or not, right? Initially it was used, but later it is dropped. Right now, persecuted minorities term is not there in the Citizenship Amendment Act. So all these minor details try to find out. And also petrol prices increasing. Crude oil prices falling and petrol prices increasing is also an issue in India, right? From many days, this issue is revolving in newspaper. So just find out whether petrol is under GST or not, right? If it's not under GST, then what are the other taxes that are being imposed? Center and state both can impose taxes on petrol. Find out what taxes they impose, right? What is excise duty on petrol? What is VAT on petrol? Banking reforms was also there in the news, right? The government is planning to privatize some of the public sector banks so that only 5 PSBs will be there. So that is also being done. Find out what are those, right? What is merging of banks? What is the process? What is in principle approval? What is amalgamation of banks? What are some committees which recommended for merging of banks? Find out all these things. AGR issue, adjusted gross revenue related to telecom sector. That was also in the news in today's paper. What is this AGR, right? What is the body that is responsible for fixing this AGR? Find out all those things. National Financial Reporting Authority was also in the news today in the business page. What is this NFRA? This is about accounting standards in companies. Because the accounts are being not properly maintained in companies, we have seen crises such as Punjab National Bank scam, ILFS crisis, right? Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, all these scams have taken place because they have tampered the accounts. So National Financial Reporting Authority is related to that. So find out about that body. And Hope Mission also was in the news today, right? Arab's first mission to the Mars. It was launched from Japan. Find out the details. And UK, China, Hong Kong issue. UK, China, Hong Kong issue. Right? This is an historical question also. How is UK related to Hong Kong? Right? What is basic law? Find out all these things. What is One China policy? Right? Char Dham project was in news today. So this is an important topic. What is this Char Dham? Right? 4 places of Uttarakhand are being connected. 4 religious places in Uttarakhand are being connected through road project. That is this Char Dham project. However, it's in controversy because the ecosystem in Uttarakhand is very fragile, very weak and very vulnerable. So floods and road slides potential is more if this project is taken up, right? That's why this case is revolving in Supreme Court and even in National Green Tribunal also. So find out what is this Chardham project, how is it related to Swadesh Darshan scheme of Ministry of Tourism, what are the places in this Chardham, Kedarnath, Badrinath, Yamunotri, Gangotri. These are the 4 places, just find out. And there is another Chardham also apart from this Chardham which connects 4 places in India, right? Rameshwaram, Puri. So find out those places also. Jammu and Kashmir special status, that is one area where we can expect, right? What happened on August 5th yesterday, last year? What is that J&K reorganization bill? What is Article 370? What is Article 35A? Right? One day we'll dedicatedly take Jammu and Kashmir issue. I'll discuss everything, but you also try to find them out. And e-commerce policy also being launched by Consumer Ministry, right? That was also in the news. So e-commerce policy, e-commerce was in the news for various reasons. Government is also trying to tax the e-commerce companies, right? 2% equalization levy. 2% equalization levy. Find out what is this 2% tax on e-commerce companies. PASEX was in the news today, passage exercise. So what is this passage exercise? So India and United States together conducted a naval exercise in Indian Ocean region near Andaman and Nicobar Islands yesterday, right? In Andaman and Nicobar Islands yesterday, in nearby that region, India and US have did this passage exercise, right? What is this PASEX? Find about that. And Iran again said that India is a part of Chabahar rail project, right? So Chabahar project, just find the details about them. What is Chabahar project? How is it related to Afghanistan and Central Asia? Where is this Chabahar project located, right? Chabahar port project is different from Chabahar railway project, right? Chabahar port project, India is still a member of that project. Chabahar railway line project only, Iran made a controversy by saying India is dropped. But now it again saying India is a part of Chabahar rail project, right? Zahedan, where is this place in Afghanistan or Iran, right? Zaranj, where is this place, right? Find out all these things. Rafale fighter jets, we are getting the first set of Rafale fighter jets. Now, which country manufactured this? That is important because this Rafale deal was an issue. 2 years back, this Rafale deal made a big issue, right? And External Affairs Minister in one of the conferences yesterday made a statement on non-alignment movement. So this non-alignment movement is very important for us, right? So he made a statement indirectly saying non-alignment movement is not relevant now. So in this context, we have to know what is this non-alignment movement? When did it start? How many countries are there in this non-alignment movement? What is the philosophy of this non-alignment? What is Panchsheel? What is Bandung Conference? Right? So all this we have to know about NAM. This year, our Prime Minister has conducted virtual meeting of NAM in the month of May. Right? Last 2 years, Prime Minister did not attend this NAM meeting. He sent Vice President for this NAM meeting, indirectly showing that non-alignment is not the policy of India now, right? So this NAM is important for various reasons. Padmanabha Swami temple was also there in the news, right? Just get to know where is it located. And postal ballot system in elections, right? Election Commission of India tried to introduce postal ballot system for senior citizens also who are above age of 65. This made a huge controversy, and now Election Commission of India took back its decision, right? So just find out who all have the postal ballot facility now, right? Under which act? Under Representation of People Act 1951. Under that act, postal ballot system is there, right? What is proxy voting? Just get to find out about all these topics.